7 minutes before top of the hour 9, you're still tuned into News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. And we're going to be having our hashtag Heard on Air feature. If you're new to the show, every Thursday, we're going to be revisiting one of the conversations that we had on one of our sister shows, and Wednesday nights with Inayat Wadi last night had a really I think wonderful conversation focusing on Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe essentially rewriting their constitution and their laws, amending them, and the most overarching one obviously being the presidency's term. I think it has been increased by a further 2 years. So that means Emerson Mnangagwa, whose term was coming to an end, I think next year, will have another 2 more years. And there was a conversation around the implications of that. What does it mean for Zimbabwe? And most importantly, why should South Africa take note? Why should we have our ears perked up at this? Inayat Wadi had a conversation with a really wonderful panel, wide range of experts, particularly on Zimbabwe. There was Zimbabwean political analyst and research fellow at Maximilian University of Munich, Dr. Gideon Chitanga, United Zimbabwe Alliance Information Secretary, Dr. Tadina Masaya. There was also Zimbabwean political analyst, Kudzai Mutis, and the chairman of the Zim-Community in South Africa, Ngqabutho Mabhena. So take a listen to this really interesting conversation.
Okay, thank you. The consequences will only arise if those who are against what has happened, they have political clout. If they don't have any political clout, do not expect any consequences of a bigger magnitude. You also need to realize the kind of approach that is being taken, especially by the West at the moment. They have been quiet. We usually used to have a lot of responses from the US Embassy, from the EU, and all these other external players. They have been largely quiet. They have silently endorsed whatever happened. And then you also go to the Zimbabwean public themselves. Is there any appetite to fight, especially against President Mnangagwa? You find that the triggers that used to make people leave their homes and go onto the streets, those triggers at the moment, they are not there. As much as you see some people, some commentators, some political activists coming out, shouting, screaming, and very angry at the constitutional changes that occurred, you find that the average person on the street really is not as angry as the people. Why are they like so? You look at inflation. Inflation in Zimbabwe now is in the single digits, almost non-existent, as it were before, during maybe the 2007-2008 era. You look at things like load shedding. There is no load shedding in Zimbabwe at this point. I think they've gone for 6 months without load shedding. You look at the general income of people, as much as there are those who are getting very wealthy, but you go to the average person, they are now doing much better than they were before. So do not expect anyone. In fact, at this point, there should have been someone mobilizing the people. They did not. It's no longer CAP 3, as the doctor has been saying. It's now Constitutional Amendment number 3. It's now signed into law. It's now part of the Constitution. So much that abiding by the Constitution at this point includes abiding by the new amendments that were made. So if you're a political party, you should already be preparing that in the next election, the president will be elected by the members of parliament. If you want to register as a voter, you now know where to go to register. This is now the new law. People can try to be dismissive and in denial, but that does not change. And in terms of legitimacy, the political legitimacy does not come now. It comes during elections. The moment ZANU-PF got the 2/3 majority in parliament, that is the moment they got the mandate that they can change the constitution if they want to do so. They got the legitimacy that time. That there are opposition people who do not like it is a different issue. I heard Nicholas saying there should be a referendum. The 2013 constitution said if we change the term limits, that is one of the debates that was debated during the amendments. And the people who were saying so were saying the term limits are changing. But the argument against was saying the term limits remain true. It is about the length that is changing. And it's not about President Mnangagwa only. The presidents that are going to come after him, they will enjoy the new term length of 7 years. That is the issue. Then the argument that he is benefiting or he's going to benefit, at this point, it may not even hold water because he has a mandate before this CAP 3. He has a mandate until 2028. The extension, benefiting from the extension, can only be debated maybe in 2029, for instance, when this current mandate that he got before these amendments expire. So at this point, he is still enjoying whatever he had from 2023 up to 2028. If there is anything that he is benefiting, you cannot make that argument now because he has not gone beyond the 2028. It's not yet material. That is why even during the parliamentary process, there are people who tried to challenge it in court. And the courts were clear to them and said, you cannot challenge a law that has not yet been passed. After it has been passed, you can go to court and challenge it. So now we are seeing the people who are out to challenge. How the courts are going to interpret this is what we wait to see. For now, we don't know. But the arguments that Nicholas was making, those are some of the arguments that they're taking to court. Whether they're going to win or not, we shall see as time goes on. For now, we don't know.
Well, thank you, Kudzai. In fact, Nicholas, I would actually want you to respond to what Kudzai is saying. And, he's spoken in unpacking the issues that I had raised with regard to the political consequences. He spoke about inflation, single digits. He spoke about people being better off, load shedding, no load shedding for the last 6 months. And so obviously saying that there is stability in the country as we speak right now. But once again, and also at the same time saying that with the two-thirds majority, obviously the government would be justified in changing the constitution because that is what the constitution is saying. How does one actually respond to this if one needs to actually challenge, the sweeping changes to the governance framework of the country?
Look, let's start with what he has raised, why the West is quiet. We know that, of course, there was a contestation in 2000, particularly in 1998, when Robert Mugabe intervened militarily in the Democratic Republic of Congo in support of President Kabila. We know that when ZANU-PF won elections in 1980, it came in as a puppet of imperialist forces. It was the administration of Margaret Thatcher that handed over power to ZANU-PF. Then there was a fallout when Mugabe supported President Kabila, and that coincided with the land conference, land donor conference, which Tony Blair decided not to support on the basis that Mugabe had committed our military in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where Rwanda and Uganda were used as proxies to overthrow President Kabila. So there was that fallout with the West from 1998. After Mugabe went in 2017, forced to resign by the military, we saw how President Emmerson Mnangagwa sought to end international isolation. The first was to apply to join, take us back to the imperialist default, the Commonwealth, popularly known as the British Commonwealth. And we know that Britain were involved in that military coup. So the British and the West is correct, though it's not putting it in the manner in which I'm putting it, that they are quiet because they now have their men. Of course, there are other issues that they still need to do, which of course, I think what it disrupted their relationship was the 2018 shootings, when young people went to demand the results of the elections. But they are beginning to have this good relationship. And of course, the ZANU-PF spokesperson Chitanga is on record as saying, while South Africa is receiving this backlash from Donald Trump claiming that there's a white Afrikaner genocide, Chitanga, their ZANU-PF spokesperson, puts it in the public domain that indeed they are building a relationship with the Afrikaner community, particularly the Afrikaner that is in Washington, DC. And of course, ZANU-PF says they are friends of everyone, enemies of none. They've abandoned the struggle against imperialism. So this is why then the West is quiet. Yes, of course, we had good rains in Zimbabwe, and you also know that the population largely is a rural. So when we have subsistence farmers harvesting in their fields, there's no pressure in terms of government, in terms of feeding the people through food aid and so forth. And of course, you do have a large diaspora community that inject lots of monies in the Zimbabwean economy. The Minister of Finance says about 2.5 billion US dollars found its way as through remittances from the diaspora community in 2025 alone. But of course, you also have this pressure that if indeed from 2017, the so-called Second Republic has been providing basic needs to the people of Zimbabwe, rebuilding the economy, prioritizing production, you will not have mass of the people that are flocking to South Africa. And we're seeing what is happening now. And we are holding this show when people are being repatriated back to Zimbabwe. And a part of this amendment is that the institution ZANU-PF itself, if you study the election results in 2018 and in 2023, ZANU-PF, of course, we are agreeing it has been moving towards a 2/3 majority. But the leader of the party, the first secretary of the party, has been struggling to hit 50% plus one vote. He struck it in 2018, struck it in 2023. So now you change the constitution so that you don't place him or any leader of ZANU-PF who is not popular, put him out there as a presidential candidate, but rather get him through parliament so that then parliament becomes an electoral college. It is common cause, which is scientific, that President Mnangagwa has not been popular. Yes, he hit 50% of the vote, but not as popular as the party that it is. And of course, we know the capture of the opposition, starting with the MDC alliance, when Monzora became a puppet of the ruling party. When he had done what they wanted him to do, they dumped him, raised him, one Chabang claiming to be Secretary General of CCC, the records that we saw. And this is why you did not have problems in passing this bill in Parliament. Thanks.
Well, thank you for that, Nicholas. Dr. Gideon, we have been talking about the possibility of a legal pushback, possibly even with civic society, with opposition parties who possibly could be planning to challenge these changes in the constitution. But again, looking at a country like Zimbabwe, that has come through some extremely challenging times, it's come through some very, very difficult times as well to get to where it is at this point in time and gaining some sort of legitimacy in the eyes of the international world. Now, the question we spoke about is, democracy and just how democratic is, this or are these latest developments in terms of the change of constitution?
The 2013 constitution is the most democratic constitution that Zimbabwe has ever had. I think going back to the colonial eras, scholars of Zimbabwean constitutionalism will agree with that point. The second thing is that, and I'm just glad that Mr. Mutis does not talk of democracy. He talks about a ZANU-PF power. You see, there's a difference between accumulating power and creating a democratic society that benefits its citizens. At this moment, President Mnangagwa he has actually betrayed Zimbabweans, has betrayed his promise to Zimbabweans. This is a president who made one major speech when he returned from South Africa after running away from former President Robert Mugabe. He gave the Zimbabweans a sense of hope by actually giving them a sense that he was going to create a more democratic society, or rather entrench a democracy in Zimbabwe, of course, based on the constitution that we had. This is the person who ran away from a former president that he sought to succeed, and his family was under threat. He himself was under threat. When he came back, there was a story circulating in Zimbabwe that there were attempts on his life. Zimbabweans today, I believe that they look at him partly with a sense that here is a clownish figure who is politically cunning and manipulative, and he succeeded in doing that in terms of bending the rules, circumventing major constitutional requirements. Clearly, there's no reason why he would seek an extension of 2 years if he's not going to benefit from it, as Mr. Mutis wants to suggest. So this is an awful violation of the constitution. Democracy simply requires that we uphold the rules. We don't move goalposts. And where Zimbabwe is today, I think that Zimbabweans and all people who share some solidarity with Zimbabweans are correct to question why is it that the president would be so consumed with facilitating an illegitimate, potentially illegal change of the constitution in a country that is facing immense challenges. You can talk about electricity not being load-shedded, but think about the percentage of Zimbabweans who really depend on that electricity. A reasonable person, who wherever they may be, and if they happen to be economically privileged, and they are Zimbabweans, I think 80% of their income goes back home to service the needs of Zimbabweans who are back home. Teachers cannot pay school fees for the children, their only children, and yet they teach in classes. Nurses cannot afford medication. If they can afford such medication, there isn't medication in hospitals and across the country. I can go on and on and on, but my point is that the key project that Mnangagwa could have pushed for Zimbabwe, it would have been probably a broader economically participatory project. At 82, I think that President Mnangagwa should be thinking about peacefully retiring and facilitating a peaceful transition for the first time in Zimbabwe, to allow whoever is legitimately chosen, whether within ZANU-PF or outside, to lead the country, so that Zimbabweans can live in peace despite whichever political party they come from. The last part is going back to the economy.